Hi, my name is Ray Chambers and I'm going to be talking about Unit 4, which is called We Are Botanists, and it's all about sorting and identifying plants and kind of trying to relate it to algorithms. So for this unit of work, you don't actually need a lot of software or hardware. Really, you just need tree diagrams, or some people like flowcharts, but the software you'll need is PowerPoint, and you'll be hyperlinking. And optionally, you might want to get some digital cameras so you can get students going out, maybe if you've got a school garden, to take some pictures there. So in previous lessons, students would have learnt about what an algorithm is and how algorithms are used by computers for the kind of like detailed instructions. And an algorithm can't be unambiguous, so it can't kind of say, do this. It would have to say, carry out this task this way, this many times to be specific. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to sort plants based on their similarities and their differences. And the students are going to present their work in the form of a tree diagram. And then to recreate that tree diagram, they're going to actually use hyperlinks within PowerPoint. So some of the links with the computing curriculum, one of the things that we'll be talking about is the use of technology safely and respectfully, because if students are getting images off the internet, they are going to need to credit people, but they're also going to be using a variety of software and digital devices to kind of complete this goal. Not just computer science though, there are links to science, okay? So like biology, you could actually talk about plants and identify all the different living things and kind of put them into different groups. And again, you can use software to complete these different software to complete this goal. Other subjects that you might want to use is you might want to use numeracy, because there are opportunities for students to kind of sort numbers. So where we've got yes and no questions, you can do greater than or less than. So you can say, is the number greater than 50? If it is, then the number's between 50 and 100, and so on. And then you can do this with art and design and get them to be artistic with their images of plants and flowers, and then they can embed them into their PowerPoint. So students will be expected to develop their research skills to locate and save images. Now, you may be confident on this, but there are videos around that show you how to do this. They'll need to make sure they acknowledge the work of others. Now, if you've watched my other mix videos, you will be able to actually have a look through them and see how to reference within Word. And you can do a similar thing within PowerPoint, but those will be useful for you to refer to. They should be able to draw and construct tree diagrams and use hyperlinks to create non-linear PowerPoint presentations. And what we mean by non-linear is that you can click on a link and it takes you to different slides, because linear PowerPoints are PowerPoints that just go through slide by slide, kind of like this one. So like I said before, for this lesson there won't be too many resources required. You'll need your 3D shapes if you want to do a kind of example tree diagram before, and maybe pictures of animals and types of food. A food lesson might be fun for students. You might want to bring in chocolate, or if you're doing healthy foods, you could bring in like bananas and apples and ask yes or no questions, such as, is it yellow? And so on. Images of plants, you can either bring these in or you can get them to search online, like we said before. And diagrams of different groups. I mean, here's some useful tools here, such as the amphibians and reptiles. It shows you how they sort. So you could actually hand out things like them, and then what you can do is get the kids to come up with the question. So does it live on land? If it's a yes, then it's this type of animal, and so on. So that's the sort of thing you can do with these resources. So in preparation, there's not really a lot you need to do for this lesson. You might want to get digital cameras ready, and the pure reason for that is if you want to take your students outside to take pictures of trees or flowers. use the internet, but make sure you check your source for your images, because if you happen to be looking up pictures of animals, unless you're using a safe search engine, sometimes inappropriate images can come up and you need to watch your back there. Make sure there's examples of electronic tree diagrams for the children to try out. I mean, here's a good tool for sorting, and there's the website address, and it allows you to like pick animals and drag and drop them and kind of position them. So that's something that might be useful for you to use. So lesson 1 is all about what a branch and tree diagram is, and this example's in the PDF samples that are given away with the switched on computing samples. And you can see that this is a shape tree diagram, and it asks questions like, does it have 4 sides? If it's yes, are all sides equal, and so on, and then you can kind of split it up. And what you can do is, once they've made this, you can give the children time to try out other activities. So you might find online tools that might be useful, and you can actually drag and drop some of the images into certain areas. I mean, you could even use Venn diagrams to help you with this activity. I know there's been a few of those tools online. And then explain to the students that they're going to create their own tree diagram to sort and identify groups of plants. But make sure that you say that we're going to be doing a sorting algorithm so that they understand the computing terms. So to do this lesson, you'll need to give the students a selection of questions. Some of them can be open-ended and some of them can be yes or no questions. But then what you want to do is actually get them to kind of identify what the yes or no questions are and kind of lead that into the next activity where they start kind of creating their own tree diagram. Now, one suggestion that I think might be useful to start this lesson is to do a 20 questions game. So you could say to your students, I'm thinking of a celebrity, you have 20 questions you can ask me to find out who it is. So for example, they might say, are you boy or girl? So there's only 2 answers there, and that says that, well, if they said it's a boy, then the students know they need to look for a male celebrity, and all the questions could lead to them finding out the answer, and they'll see how this works. And for homework, they can construct a list of yes or no questions, and they can interview their family at home, so they can try and ask them questions to find out where they were born and that type of thing, and this should be a useful step in the right direction. Now, step 2 is useful because the students need to find the images for their tree diagram. And like I said before, you want to think about your search engine or where you're getting your images from in case inappropriate things pop up. Now, you need to show your students how to give credit to the creators of the images. So I would recommend you could create a Word document. You could actually create a Word document with tables in it that's got image in one column and source in the other, and then your students can acknowledge them, and then we can talk about how important that is. Just recap to your students, because you can't assume that they all have the same ability when it comes to using the software. Just show them how to open up a PowerPoint file and save it, and then give the children time to actually search for their 6 images of their plants so that they can start building it. Or if you've got time, again, like I said, you could take your students outside into your school garden or just around the area to get some pictures of plants. So, like I said before, students will create their own pictures or get them from the internet from the school. The students will need to organise the presentation so that the images are manipulated to fit on the slides, because some images that they get on the internet might be really big, some might be small, so there's a skill you could teach them, how to compress images, and you could talk about how important it is that we compress images so that we can keep our file sizes down and then send them to people without them being too big. Prior to the lesson, you might want to get students to even take their pictures in their own gardens at home. You could bring your own device within your school and get your students to bring their iPads or iPhones or Surfaces or Android devices, all these different devices they could bring in. and then ask your students to create posters explaining why it's important to credit the work of others. So you're kind of getting them to think about copyright there. Now, designing the tree diagram is the easy bit. What you need to do is show your students the images of the 6 plants and get them to come up with the yes or no questions. And you can do this on paper, or you can do this using digital tools just to begin with. Some students might find it easier to plan it out on paper before they actually go on to the computer and start developing it. And what you can do is get them to ask more yes or no questions to create different groups of images. So it could be not just plants, but you could get them to do animals as well. And you need to explain the questioning and how it works so that they split their groups correctly. So they could do it by colour first, or they could do it by the size, or they, for example, animals, they could do it on legs or their skin type, because they might want to say whether it's scales, then they know it's a snake. So that's how you want to go forward with that. Now, there's different ways of sorting the information out. Now, obviously we're using tree diagrams in this situation, but what you could do is get your students to actually create flowcharts and use the traditional symbols. So you can give your students a tree diagram that sorts groups of unfamiliar objects for homework, but you could extend it again and get them to use fruits or vegetables and challenge them to identify the objects at home.
In PowerPoint, use hyperlinks to create a branching tree diagram, where user interaction controls the order in which the slides are displayed. First, plan out the tree diagram you want to build. Then, create the content of each PowerPoint slide, adding text and images as you need. To link to another slide in the same presentation, select the text or image for the link, right-click and choose Hyperlink. Link to Place in this document, followed by the slide to display when the link is clicked. Open Hyperlink will take you to that slide. Repeat this process until you have created all the hyperlinks you need, making sure that you have covered all possible choices.
The previous slide will have shown you an example of how you can actually get the hyperlinks working. So in the last lesson, what we want to do is start getting the slides hyperlinked to each other so that the yes or no questions take them to another slide. Now, if you follow the video tutorial on the previous slide, what you will be able to do is create all sorts of links, and you can actually extend it to get the students adding maybe 6 after the 6 images, they could do 7 or 8, and make it even more complicated to sort out their group of images. So, like I said before, you've seen the example of what the tree structure should look like, but what you could do is, when they're finished, is get them to create another one independently without any help, and you could say that they need to sort their stationery into groups. So it might be you've got to sort out which are pencils, which are pens, and so on. And if they get really advanced, what you could actually do is get them to bring in some figurines from home so they can actually sort out their toys as well. And for homework, you can challenge the children to create another tree diagram for 6 objects of their choice. So where does this fit into the curriculum? Well, all students should be able to find appropriate images online and save them. So that's them using the internet responsibly, especially if they give credit. They need to understand that images they find on the internet don't belong to them. So that's really important for them to know. Now, they'll be creating hyperlinks in their PowerPoint that link to other slides. So everybody should be able to do that. But in the most, you may notice that people will be able to create a series of hyperlinks. So some of your lower ability students may only be able to do 1 or 2 sorts here, but as they're getting more and more advanced, they'll be able to do a lot more. And the great thing about some of your high ability students, you'll be able to get them to evaluate their actual search criteria. So if they're searching for images online and they can't find the images they need, you could talk to them about maybe changing their keywords and get them to understand the importance of why you need to change your keywords sometimes when searching the internet. So that's where it fits into the curriculum and what you should expect your outcomes to be. The next slide will talk a little bit about assessment. So this is the last slide on this presentation, and as you can see, it's quite a simple lesson to get through. Students are creating a tree diagram. They're using different tools. There might be some electronic tools online for them to use to actually sort things out and see how it works. But where it really relates to the curriculum is they'll be using technology safely and respectfully when they search for images online. And they're also using software to accomplish a given goal. I mean, you're giving them a target to create this tree diagram using PowerPoint, and they're going to complete that goal. So remember before, in all of these video tutorials, I have mentioned in the slides about peer assessment, verbal assessment, and how you can use what went well and even better if against the progression levels. So if you want to assess your work, you don't need to panic. As long as your students are getting some sort of feedback that help them progress and achieve some success in computing, then you're doing a good job. So I hope these slides have been useful, and look forward to seeing you in presentation 5.